Ireland's rising star, Callum Walsh, has the chance to conquer an opponent in one of the most iconic boxing venues of all time. In his way is the 13-1 record-holding New York Ismael Villareal, who's determined to stop the Irishman dead in his tracks. Madison Square Garden is going to witness a serious brawl between the two, and we're here to tell you all about it. The Irishman's rise. Callum Walsh. This southpaw hailing from Cork, Ireland, has been making the waves. Born on the 9th of February 2001, his boxing career is in its earliest infancy, making him a superstar on the rise. But his boxing story goes back to when he was just a toddler. His father introduced him to the sweet science at the age of 6. It was actually my old man. He got me into a boxing gym when I was like 6 years old, and I've just been there ever since, he begins. I played a bit of hurling all right for a while, but I had to pick one. You can't mix the two of them, especially with all the injuries and stuff. So I just went with the boxing. Soon, boxing became everything. He started competing in local amateur bouts at the age of 12. Moving from his native Cork to the rest of Ireland in competitions over the course of a few years, he continued to stack up a great record. A dominant and forward-attacking fighting style was being developed by him, even in his adolescence, and a great number of unanimous decision wins can attest to that. It was at this time that he had found an idol and fellow Irishman and MMA fighter Conor McGregor, who was also beginning his dominance of the UFC's most profitable cards. I've been watching McGregor since I was 12 years old. Yeah, I used to stay up late at night to watch his fights. The highlight of his amateur career came in 2017, when he won the 2017 EUBC European Junior Championships, which is the premier amateur boxing proving ground across all of Europe. His unanimous decision victory over the Bulgarian Stilian Ristov cemented him as a professional prospect right then and there. In the span of 2 months, then 16-year-old Walsh had won Irish and European titles. But he wasn't done yet, as he went on to win the 2018 Celtics Box Cup. He would try to capture the Irish National Amateur Championship title in different categories later on in 2018 and 2019, but he came up short. He had to finish his schooling after all. Either way, with a 44-10 amateur record, he had nothing more to prove, and it was time to go pro. With the blessings of his father, Callum Walsh faced off in his first pro boxing match against Earl Henry. His stunning hook punch knockout of Henry caught the attention of boxing promoter Tom Leffler. Leffler was so impressed that he awarded Walsh a contract to join his 360 promotion stable and built the St. Patrick's Day event for him to star in. For his second fight, he would have the backing of coach Freddie Roach, and it made for the best start to a professional career that any young boxer could hope for. Callum's subsequent fights was hosted on Tom Leffler's Hollywood Fight Night card on the 17th of March, which was in turn broadcast on UFC Fight Pass. And that meant the validation of none other than UFC President Dana White. Dana White got behind him 100%. Leffler said, "We did a sponsorship deal for Howler Head Whiskey already for Callum, and he's gotten a lot of recognition and praise from Freddie Roach, who's trained numerous world champions." Callum Walsh had his own epic reaction. "Yeah, Dana, man, he's unbelievable. He's actually one of the soundest fellas out there actually. From watching him on the telly for so long to actually meeting the man in person." The UFC president's pick was the ace, as Walsh now stands with an unbeaten record of 8-0, with 7 knockout wins. Dylan Parsley, Carson Wells, and Juan Jose Velasco were all simply unable to continue standing after facing the onslaught of Walsh's devastating body shots. Dylan Parsley was knocked down a stunning 3 times throughout the match. It was hard to see him receive that kind of a beating. His impressive physique and explosive style as trained by Freddie Roach have made him an instant star from his second fight. Of course, Dana White's privilege seemed to have helped him go the extra mile this early, but there can be no debate regarding his raw potential. It was all vindicated when his childhood hero acknowledged his skills. The first time I actually met McGregor, he already knew who I was. This was only a couple months ago at the John Jones fight. McGregor walked in. I was sitting in my seat. He was sitting 2 rows ahead of me, and he walked in, looked around, and saluted me. And I thought, oh, that's Conor McGregor. And I went to the front to get a photo with him, and he looked to me and said, "Oh, Callum, I support you all the way. I love your boxing," Walsh recalled. Whether you love McGregor or hate him, his endorsement means something. And Walsh is set to prove it once more at the Madison Square Garden. Ismael Villareal gets real. Growing up in the Bronx, Ismael Villareal was bound to grow up rough and tough. The 23-year-old middleweight has been training to compete ever since he was 8, thanks to his father and former boxer Otilio Villarreal. The Villareals were originally from Ecuador, and Otilio made the move to professional boxing in '92 while living in the Bronx. Otilio once had the dream of every fighter, to become a world champion, but he never received any high-level backing. It turned him into a boxer who was brought around only to serve as a heel. Such a career was not sustainable, and as a series of losses starting in '98 meant that he had to give it up. That's where his son would instinctually step up as a kid, as if to get started on the road to finish what Otilio wanted for so long. But it took a while for the father to feel confident in his son's resolve to compete in the ring. Initially, Villarreal just boxed for self-defense purposes. After all, growing up in the Bronx comes with its own set of risks. However, Otilio wouldn't allow him to step into the ring until he began training seriously. He finally got in the ring at age 11 and had approximately 50 amateur fights, winning the prestigious New York Golden Gloves title in 2015 and 2016. He was poised to try for the U.S. Olympic team, but that fell out, and he took the decision to go pro in 2017. Being a forward-attacking fighter just like Callum Walsh, Villarreal's early career opponents felt the full brunt of his wrath as he kept achieving unanimous decision victories and knockout wins. His dismantling of Linwood Dozier twice, with well-timed strikes within the same round in 2019, and LaShawn Rodriguez in 2022 were both class acts. Unfortunately, the very next fight with Andrew Holmes Jr. in February 2023 would end in frustration, as the split decision victory went to Holmes. Holmes proved to be a rather tough nut to crack, and he was using his height and reach to frustrate Villarreal and keep him at bay. One might say that his over-reliance on being on the forward and attacking all the time put him at a disadvantage when faced with superior reach, as the jabs appeared to stop him in his tracks repeatedly. Nevertheless, he wised up, and 6 months later, John David Martinez was sent off the ring with the second-round TKO. Despite the upset in February, Villarreal remains in good form, and he'll have to bring out all the stops if he wants to stop Callum Walsh in his city. Fighters compared. Of course, both fighters are aggressive power punchers and rely heavily on their offense. Callum Walsh in particular has gone ahead in achieving high-level backing due to the consistency and grace by which he's able to connect powerful punches and score knockouts. What really helps is his height, standing 6 feet tall, and therefore being able to pack a lot of muscle. With good stamina, the muscular stature creates the basis for extremely heavy attacks. One of the things that impressed us with Callum in his pro debut was his poise in the ring and his aggressiveness and punching power, said promoter Tom Leffler. The height also gives him a significant reach advantage over Ismael Villareal, which is exactly what put him in trouble against Adriel Holmes Jr. And with Walsh still being rather young, he simply doesn't care about the crowd or other things. He seems to want nothing but to be a formidable boxer to be reckoned with and enter the annals of Irish combat sports history as its next legend after his own idol Conor McGregor. A lot of fighters who make the transition from the amateurs to the professionals, sometimes they get a little bit gun-shy and not as aggressive as they were in the amateurs. But we didn't see any of that. We definitely saw him just with eagerness to get the win in the ring, and that's what really looks to set him apart, already having that star quality this early in his career. And lastly, a dedicated social media fan that motivates him and a fan base that he also has to impress goes a long way. Ismael Villareal, however, has learned a lot from his fight with Holmes and has seemingly worked on improving his defensive skills. His tendency to mix more technical fighting with his usual aggressiveness was always seen before that fight, though. Villarreal is a pressure fighter who maneuvers around his opponents by taking advantage of his lighter feet to break through defenses and attack weak spots, particularly with uppercuts. This is combined with a consistent body attack which wears opponents down, much like Marvin Hagler, who he cites as a major influence. I wouldn't compare myself to him, he's a whole different animal, but that's the guy I look at all the time because he has that mentality, endurance, and physical strength as well. Manager Jose Santiago says what sets Villarreal apart from other prospects is his mental makeup. When he steps into the ring, his mind is set to kill. He wants to destroy his opponent, says Santiago, and you know for a fact that adding a championship belt in the history of the Villarreal family name is the prime motivation here. When my son becomes champ, Otilio said stoically, I'm going to feel good. And Callum Walsh may be the toughest challenge ahead of him so far. With such high stakes and the memory of his frustrating loss to Holmes Jr., he may leverage his defense and tactical precision to edge out a decision victory. On the other hand, the larger and arguably more powerful Walsh stands just as much of a chance at scoring yet another stunning knockout victory. Only time will tell. Are you excited to see both fighters duke it out for a chance at a championship title? Leave us a like and subscribe if you agree with our assessment of this showdown. We'll see you again when the dust settles on the canvas.